Starship FCC filings that change everything we thought we knew about Flight 13. A Raptor 3 explosion at McGregor, and a new launch timeline that is finally actually backed up by hardware. And NASA is flying 4 incredibly brave astronauts around the moon after a more than 50-year hiatus. Spaceflight is so back. My name is Felix, welcome to What About It. Let's dive right in. Starship updates. I'll be honest with you, I've been on a vacation for the past 2 weeks and it was wonderful. But coming back to Artemis 2 and 2 weeks of Starbase news all at once is a bit like Christmas, don't you think? Let's start at Pad 2, where SpaceX ran 3 separate deluge tests on April 4th alone. 2 of those tests fired the deluge system inside the flame trench, the third activated the system on top of the pad itself. While the deluge system inside the trench is busy protecting everything below the launch deck from the blast of 33 Raptor engines, the deck system kicks in once the booster engines have cleared the hole inside the pad. This system doesn't just deal with the heat, it also interrupts the shock waves. On Pad 1, those shock waves blasted everything around the pad. This new design should be able to reduce this greatly. Fast turnaround is the goal here. SpaceX also ran weight tests on the ship quick disconnect arm using water-filled weight bags to simulate load on the arm. The ship quick disconnect is one of the most critical interfaces on the entire pad. It is what physically connects the Starship upper stage to the tower before launch, delivering propellants and providing power and data links right up to the moment of liftoff. This test likely marks structural completeness of the system. Now let's talk launch dates. Is Flight 12 getting closer? What's the holdup for SpaceX? FCC filings have appeared for both Starship Flight 12 and Flight 13, and Flight 13's filing contains something that surprised a lot of people in the community, including me. Flight 12 is straightforward. Both the booster and the ship will fly suborbital trajectories as expected. This is the first flight of version 3 hardware, and the goal is to validate everything from the engines to the pad to the flight profile before attempting anything more ambitious. We've seen exactly this on every Starship flight before. Flight 13 is different though. According to the FCC filing, Flight 13's second stage, meaning the ship, will fly an orbital trajectory, and it may or may not return to the landing site. That is a significant departure from what Musk said previously. He stated publicly that SpaceX would need 2 good suborbital flights with the new version 3 ship before attempting a catch. The FCC filing suggests SpaceX may be planning to skip that second suborbital flight entirely and go orbital on Flight 13. The fact that they filed for an orbital ship trajectory on Flight 13 tells you that they're at least planning for that possibility. And given how aggressively SpaceX has been moving, I wouldn't be shocked if they pull it off. Elon Musk also posted on X about the Flight 12 timeline. He is tracking 4 to 6 weeks. Now, I want to be careful here, because this is the 3rd time he has said exactly that, 4 to 6 weeks. Do you know the movie Groundhog Day? What's the holdup? January 6th, Starship launch in 6 weeks. March 7th, Starship V3 first flight in about 4 weeks. And now April 3rd, next flight of Starship and first flight of V3 ship and booster is 4 to 6 weeks away. Now, I want to be careful here, because this is the 3rd time he has said exactly that, 4 to 6 weeks. Do you know the movie Groundhog Day? But here's the thing, this time the hardware actually supports it. Engine installation on both Booster 19 and Ship 39. After that, Booster 19 goes to Pad 2 for a full 33 engine static fire, and Ship 39 heads to Massey's for its ship static fire with all 6 Raptor engines. Both of those can happen roughly in parallel. From there, both vehicles return to the production site for post-fire inspections and checkouts. And then comes the decision point. SpaceX has 2 options. Option 1, go directly for a launch attempt after checks. They skipped the wet dress rehearsal on the last several flights, so there is precedent for that. Option 2, do a wet dress rehearsal first. Stack both vehicles at the pad, fill them with propellant, and simulate the entire launch sequence right up to ignition. Given that Flight 12 is using almost exclusively new hardware, a brand new version 3 booster, a brand new version 3 ship, and a completely redesigned pad, a wet dress rehearsal might be the cautious and smart choice. There's a lot of new hardware to validate together for the first time. Either way, the math works out to early to mid-May as the current realistic launch window. Musk's 4 to 6 weeks from now puts it in the same range, May 5th to May 19th. For once, the statement and the hardware timelines are actually pointing at the same target. Now, I want to be careful here because this is the third time he has said exactly that, 4 to 6 weeks. Do you know the movie Groundhog Day? Something dramatic happened at McGregor. But first, let's talk about comprehending things. Okay, last week I had 2 Artemis briefings back to back. Interviews, press conferences, different engineers planning different parts of the mission, and honestly, that is usually where things get messy. Hours of recording and trying to remember who said what about the heat shield? That used to mean scrubbing through recordings just to find one quote. Now I just pull out my Plaud Note Pro. It is about the size of a credit card and it fits right in my wallet. I hit record and it captures everything. That's it. After, instead of digging through hours of audio, get a full transcript with speaker labels, a structured summary, and key action points pulled out. That's it. When I'm scripting, I can search for exactly what I need. No re-listening. That alone has changed how I prep videos. And why not just use your phone? It breaks the flow. Unlocking, notifications, storage worries. This just runs in the background up to around 50 hours, no interruptions. It also meets high privacy standards, which matters when dealing with sources. It's made turning messy conversations into usable content way more efficient. Check it out. Link is in the description. Alright, back to Starbase. A long-duration Raptor 3 test fire at SpaceX's engine test facility ended in a large explosion. The test stand involved is likely out of service for at least a few weeks while SpaceX assesses damage and makes repairs. Long-duration test fires push engines hard. They are designed to find the limits, and occasionally they do exactly that in a very visible way. SpaceX has multiple test stands at McGregor, and the Raptor 3 production and testing pace has been running well ahead of what is needed for Flight 12. This is a setback for that particular stand, but it is not a program stopper. Something a little different now, but relevant to SpaceX's broader direction. Remember SpaceX's shift to a lunar base and 1 million AI satellites? On March 21st, Musk officially announced Terafab, a joint venture between Tesla, SpaceX, and xAI to build a semiconductor fabrication facility in Austin, Texas. The goal is to produce chips for 2 specific applications: AI chips for Tesla vehicles and robots, and a separate radiation-hardened chip for space-based data centers to be launched on Starship. During the announcement, SpaceX also showed the first render images of the AI satellite designed to carry those space chips. The render is striking. The satellite is considerably longer than a Starship from end to end, with enormous solar panels designed to meet the power demands of running AI compute in orbit. The small extra panel is where the satellite will dissipate the heat generated by AI computing. The reason why this makes sense is easy. If you have a cheap rocket and can produce all the necessary hardware in-house at scale, it will be cheaper than doing AI computing here on Earth. Power consumption is the key factor here. Solar generation is much more efficient in space due to the lack of an atmosphere, and heat dissipation does not need large cooling systems. And as of today, Intel has announced it is joining the Terafab project, contributing its chip design, fabrication, and packaging capabilities. Intel is a huge thing in the chip industry. The scale of what Musk is describing is hard to overstate. 80% of Terafab's projected compute output is earmarked for space. SpaceX has already filed with the FCC for permission to launch up to 1 million AI satellites. And Starship is the vehicle designed to make the launch economics of that possible.
And Starship is a critical piece of the puzzle because in order to scale compute and scale power, you have to go to space, which means that you need massive payload to space. And Starship will enable that.
Whether you think this timeline is realistic or not, the connection between Terafab, the AI satellites, and Starship's launch rate targets is direct. Every piece of this feeds into the others. Here's a much quieter but significant milestone. Flight termination system charges were delivered to Starbase on March 25th for use on Flight 12. The FTS is the system that can terminate the flight if the vehicle goes off course, preventing it from slamming into populated areas like the Wise Studio.
I'm just going to go to the restroom for a moment.
Delivery of these components is one of the final steps in the regulatory and safety chain before a flight license can be granted. The paperwork is moving forward. And what better way to show it than with this? The Gateway to Mars sign is back, fully assembled, fully installed, back on the wall facing Highway 4 at Starbase. If you're driving down that road at night and you see it lit up with Mechazilla towers rising behind it, take a picture and tag me on X at Felix Schlang. Welcome back, old friend.
Old friend.
Over at the production site, the new Gigabay is continuing to take shape. Cladding panels are going up steadily. SpaceX prefabricates the panels at the Sanchez site, which means installation on the building itself moves quickly once the panels arrive. Sanchez is right next door. And the connection between the Star Factory and the Gigabay is taking shape rapidly as well. A new era for rocket production is about to begin here. Ship 4, that is a major milestone for that ship. TPS tiling is one of the most time-consuming steps in preparing a ship for flight, and having it done means Ship 40 is likely approaching the start of its cryo test campaign. I wouldn't be surprised if SpaceX waits until Ship 39 completes its static fire before rolling Ship 40 out to Massies, but either way, the vehicle is close. And it might be the first one to be caught. And Booster 20, the booster slated for Flight 13, is also progressing. Its aft section was just delivered to Megabay 1 with stacking continuing. The Flight 13 pipeline is building while Flight 12 is still in preparation. That is exactly what you want to see from a program trying to achieve operational cadence. Out at Pad 1, construction keeps moving. Another sheet pile wall was added along the front of the area where the ground support equipment bunker will be built. The sheet pile work is defining the footprint of the new flame trench and the surrounding structures one wall at a time. The pace continues to support the possibility of a second operational launch pad at Starbase before the end of this year. So here's where things stand. Now, I want to be careful here because this is the third time he has said exactly that. Flight 13 is already being prepared in parallel with an FCC filing that suggests SpaceX is not planning to take the conservative path. Two questions for the comments this week. First, do you think SpaceX will do a wet dress rehearsal before Flight 12 or go directly to launch? And second, what do you make of that Flight 13 FCC filing? Orbital ship on only the second version 3 flight? Realistic? Too aggressive? Let me know below. I will be reading every single one. Hey, thank you from the bottom of my heart for watching and liking the video. If you're among the 40% who haven't subscribed yet, it would mean the world to me if you did. It's free and it genuinely helps more people find my channel to spread the word about spaceflight. Want to make my world even easier? There's only one place you'd rather be. The Y Members Club on Patreon and right here on YouTube. Click the card or the join button right here under the video. You are the reason why we keep doing this. Thank you so much, you rock. Now here's the big one for today, and it is not Starship. Artemis 2 has broken all the records and brought new glory to NASA. On April 1st, 2026 at 6:35 p.m. Eastern Time, the most powerful rocket ever to carry humans roared to life at Kennedy Space Center's Launch Complex 39B. It is one of the original Apollo pads, and it did it once again. NASA's Space Launch System, carrying the Orion spacecraft named Integrity, and 4 astronauts climbed away from Florida on a pillar of flame generated by just shy of 4 million kilograms of thrust. After more than half a century of waiting, humans were heading back to the moon. They are the first people to leave Earth orbit since the crew of Apollo 17 in December 1972. That alone makes this mission a generational milestone. For context, most people alive today were not yet born the last time humans ventured beyond low Earth orbit. Launch day was not without its tensions though. Engineers had to work through a communications issue with the flight termination system, the safety mechanism that allows ground controllers to destroy the rocket if it veers off course. The team devised a workaround, ran a confidence test, and cleared the issue. A sensor on the launch abort system also flagged a higher than expected temperature reading, which turned out to be an instrumentation glitch rather than a real problem. Weather, meanwhile, cooperated beautifully, upgrading to a 90% favorable condition as the countdown entered its final stretch. It was a textbook launch, incredible to be there in person and to experience the raw power of the giant rocket firsthand. SLS's twin solid rocket boosters, each standing 54 meters tall and producing over 1.6 million kilograms of thrust, separated clearly about 2 minutes into the flight, followed by the launch abort system. Amazing videos were released by NASA after the launch. The core stage, with its 4 RS-25 engines, pushed Orion into orbit before shutting down and separating roughly 8 minutes after liftoff. Once in space, Orion's 4 solar array wings unfolded as planned, giving the spacecraft a wingspan of about 19 meters and providing the electrical power needed. After reaching orbit, Orion's interim cryogenic propulsion stage fired its engine to raise both the lowest and highest points of the spacecraft's orbit. These maneuvers are called the perigee raise and apogee raise burns. The 2 burns shaped Orion's initial orbit and set the stage for everything that followed. Right after the perigee raise burn, ground controllers briefly lost two-way communications with the crew. The issue was later traced to a ground configuration problem with the tracking and data relay satellite system and was quickly resolved. The crew reported they could hear mission control throughout the dropout. That must have been strange. While this problem was fixed on the ground, another problem popped up. And this one was definitely something that had to be resolved aboard Integrity, the Artemis II Orion capsule, an early surprise with the toilet. Christina Cook, who jokingly dubbed herself the Space Plumber, worked with Houston to resolve some sticky issues. It turned out that a controller fault jammed the toilet fan. That impaired urine collection. But the crew soon found out it was not the only issue with the dreaded toilet.
3, 2, 1.
A second problem came up on flight day 3. The culprit? Frozen urine had clogged the wastewater vent line. A pee sickle. Fortunately, there was an easy yet unconventional fix. The Orion capsule was rotated so the sun could support the heaters used to defrost the line. They were going again, finally. One of the mission's early test objectives was the proximity operations demonstration, a roughly 70-minute exercise in which the crew manually maneuvered Orion relative to the spent upper stage of the SLS rocket. After separating from the stage, Orion performed an automated backflip to face it, then stopped at about 90 meters away. From there, the crew took the controls and carefully guided the spacecraft closer, testing its handling qualities down to about 9 meters from the stage. And why does this matter? Because future Artemis missions will need Orion to rendezvous and dock with other spacecraft in orbit. These crafts will be the lunar landers needed for Artemis 4, 5, and beyond, HLS Starship among them. There's no GPS around the moon, so NASA needs to know exactly how Orion handles when a human pilot is flying it near another object. This demonstration provided that critical data. At the end of the exercise, Orion fired its engines to back away safely, and the spent upper stage was disposed of by re-entering Earth's atmosphere over the orbital graveyard, a remote stretch of the Pacific Ocean. On April 2nd, the mission management team gave the go for the translunar injection burn. That marked the moment Orion would be propelled out of Earth orbit and toward the moon. At 7:49 p.m. Eastern, Orion's main engine fired for 5 minutes and 50 seconds. And just like that, 4 brave human beings were on a trajectory no one had flown in over 50 years. The days that followed were spent preparing for the lunar flyby and trying out Orion's equipment, like the flywheel device. It's a remarkably compact piece of kit that weighs just 14 kilograms and fits in a carry-on sized package. Yet it supports both aerobic and resistive exercises with loads up to about 180 kilograms. They also checked their suits, practiced CPR and choking response procedures, configured cameras with specialized lenses for lunar photography, and reviewed a list of 30 surface targets sent up by the science team. Flight controllers, meanwhile, found Orion's trajectory so precise that they cancelled the first 2 planned outbound correction burns entirely.
Big picture today, we have canceled OTC-2 burn.
A third correction burn was performed on April 5th, lasting just 17.5 seconds. That's an impressive testament to how accurately the translunar injection had been executed. On the technology side, the Orion Artemis II optical communications system surpassed 100 gigabytes of data downlinked to Earth, including high-resolution images. The system is a laser-based terminal mounted on the outside of the capsule. It is a significant step toward the kind of high-bandwidth communications that will be essential for future missions to the Moon and eventually Mars. At 12:41 a.m. on April 6th, Orion crossed into the Moon's sphere of gravitational influence, meaning the Moon's gravity became the dominant force shaping the spacecraft's path. The stage was set for the main event, lunar observations during the flyby on flight day 6. The crew's workday began by configuring Orion's cabin for lunar observations, stowing equipment, setting up cameras, and choreographing how 4 people move through a space about the size of 2 minivans while trying to share window time. That's crowded. As the observation window opened, the crew experienced a unique vantage point. They could see the entire disk of the Moon at once. This perspective was fundamentally different from the Apollo missions, which flew roughly 110 kilometers above the surface. The astronauts saw regions near both poles simultaneously for the first time. That's a crazy overview effect. These locations matter because the Moon's polar regions have become the most interesting areas, especially the lunar South Pole, which is the target location for NASA's moon base. The science team had prepared a list of 30 targets for the crew to photograph and describe.
It is a real place. And when we have that perspective and we compare it to our home of the Earth, it just reminds us how much we have in common. Everything we need, the Earth provides, and that in and of itself is somewhat of a miracle.
First, I wanted to start off with connecting with what Christina said, that it was very moving to look out the window.
Several of these targets had never been seen with unaided human eyes before, including features on the roughly 20% of the far side that was illuminated by the sun during the flyby.
And our crew would like to propose a couple of potential names for those items or those areas. And we spent a bit of time this morning looking out the window, and we're able to see them now both with our naked eye and through the long lens. And so we feel this is a good time to send this down, and a special shout out to Kelsey for helping us with this. The first one we'd like to suggest is a named crater in honor of our great spacecraft integrity. And so if you were to look at Oriental on the far side and then draw a line straight up to Ohm on the far side, relatively in the middle is an unnamed crater, and we would like to suggest it be called Integrity in the future. The second one, and especially meaningful for this crew, is a number of years ago we started this journey in our close-knit astronaut family, and we lost a loved one. And there's a feature in a really neat place on the Moon, and it is on the near side, far side boundary. In fact, it's just on the near side of that boundary. And so at certain times of the Moon's transit around Earth, we will be able to see this from Earth. And so we lost a loved one. Her name was Carol, the spouse of Reed, the mother of Katie and Ellie. And if you want to find this one, you look at Glushko, and it's just to the northwest of that, at the same latitude as Ohm, and it's a bright spot on the Moon. And we would like to call it Carol, and you spell that C-A-R-R-O-L-L.
At 1:56 p.m., Integrity surpassed the farthest distance from Earth traveled by any human before, and it was still moving away from our home.
But we, most importantly, choose this moment to challenge this generation and the next to make sure this record is not long-lived.
As the Orion capsule slipped behind the Moon, communications with Houston went silent. For about 40 minutes, the spacecraft was shielded from Earth's radio signals by the Moon itself. During this window, the crew witnessed an Earth set, watching their home planet glide behind the lunar horizon and disappear. The resulting epic photographs are instant classics. Never before have humans gotten such stunningly detailed photographs of Earth and the Moon. At 7 p.m., Integrity reached its closest approach to the Moon at 6,545 kilometers above the surface. 2 minutes later, the spacecraft set a new record when it hit its maximum distance from Earth, 406,171 kilometers, surpassing Apollo 13's record by 6,600 kilometers. Shortly before re-emerging from behind the moon, the crew saw an Earth rise as well, the moment when our planet emerges from behind the opposite edge of the moon. It was captured on camera for the first time during Apollo 8, and it hasn't lost any of its magic. Comms came back online and the lunar observation period came to an end, but the show was not over yet. The sun passed behind the moon from Integrity's perspective, plunging the crew into a solar eclipse that lasted nearly an hour. It created one of the most spectacular photos so far, the shadowed moon backlit by a massive corona. And the crew analyzed the solar corona from this unique vantage point. This wrapped up one of the most scientifically rich and visually extraordinary days of human spaceflight in half a century. Flight Day 7 was largely off-duty time for the crew, a well-earned breather after the intensity of the flyby. In the early afternoon on April 7th, Orion exited the moon's sphere of gravitational influence, and the crew later sat down for a science debrief with the lunar team to review what they had observed and photographed. That evening, Orion fired its thrusters for the first return trajectory correction burn, fine-tuning its course back toward Earth. I really have to give it to NASA. This was an incredible show. You guys rock. And that's it for today. Smash the like button, subscribe for more. This is what fuels the algorithm, and this is how you can help us for free. Check out our epic shirts in your favorite Space Nerd store. Our brand new Raptor emblem design and countless others are there for you to explore. Click the card or the US or worldwide link in the description. And if you want to know how SpaceX is planning to build a self-sustained moon base in the next 10 years, watch this video next to continue your journey. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again in the next episode.